Welcome to the second of 5 short videos about how to find, browse, and search historical newspapers from Kingston and Frontenac County. I'm Jo Stanbridge, and I'm the local history and genealogy librarian at Kingston-Frontenac Public Library in Kingston, Ontario, Canada. In a previous video, we talked about how to find and browse Kingston-area newspapers from 3 date ranges. Today we'll zero in on the earliest of these date ranges, 1810 to 1926. In this video, I'll show you how to find and search those newspapers in person and online. As we discussed in the previous video, you can browse these newspapers on microfilm at the central branch of our library on Johnson Street in downtown Kingston. The local history room is located on the 2nd floor, and you're welcome to visit anytime the central branch is open. The microfilm collection includes an entire run of Kingston newspapers from 1810 until the present. That is, the Kingston Whig Standard and its predecessors, the British Whig, the Kingston Chronicle and Gazette, and so on. 2 microfilm readers are available on a first-come, first-served basis, and you don't usually have to wait long to use one. For more information about how to browse the newspapers on microfilm or online, please see the previous video, Part 1. How to browse all dates. Newspapers from the date range we're discussing today can be searched online through a website called Our Ontario. The easiest way to access them is through the Digital Kingston website. Here's a quick recap about how to get there. Start from our library's website at www.kfpl.ca. In the left-hand navigation pane, hover over the link to Online Resources and Recommendations, and in the submenu, choose Local History and Genealogy, then Digital Kingston. Another way to get there is simply to Google the phrase Digital Kingston. Either way, you'll end up here on the Digital Kingston welcome page. To get to the Newspapers section, click the Research tab at the top of the screen. If you think you might visit this page often, you might like to bookmark it on your own computer. The web address is research.digitalkingston.ca. You'll find the newspaper links in the left-hand navigation pane. If you can't see the word newspapers, click the plus sign next to the phrase Records and Documents. Then click the angle bracket to expand the newspapers category. As we saw in the previous video, the newspapers fall into 3 date ranges. Each needs to be searched in a different way. In the previous video, we explored the Browse All by Date option, which lets you scroll through the Kingston newspaper holdings by date. We also mentioned that the more recent newspapers from 1927 to the present have not been digitized yet. I'll tell you how to work with them in a later video. Today, I'll tell you how to search the earlier date range, the Kingston newspapers that were published between 1810 and 1926. The first thing to say about the collections of newspapers in this date range is that it's much bigger than it used to be. Until recently, this collection of digitized newspapers only went up to the year 1901. But recently, thanks to an initiative by the Frontenac Heritage Foundation, access to those early newspapers has been extended all the way through the year 1926. As you can imagine, this has caused a lot of excitement among local researchers. It opened up unprecedented access to a quarter century of content, including the World War I years, that was previously accessible only by browsing through reel after reel of microfilm. The Frontenac Heritage Foundation worked with the team from Our Digital World to digitize these newspapers, with financial support from the Davies Foundation and from a City of Kingston Heritage Fund project grant. We owe them a big debt of gratitude. As soon as this tutorial is done, you can hop right over and start exploring this newly expanded collection yourself. Let me show you how it works. Let's say we want to find an obituary for this man, Henry Towsley, who died on September 17, 1922, according to this picture from the Canadian Headstones website. In Digital Kingston, under the Research tab, we'll choose that 1810 to 1926 date range. A page will open explaining that there are 3 different methods for searching these newspapers. Let's choose the first one. It's the quickest and best place to start your search. Right here, the text tells us to click on the link to the Our Ontario website. This opens the main page for the digitized Kingston newspapers, all 26,540 of them. You'll see a couple of search buttons at the top right-hand side of the page. Those are used for searching all of the collections on the Our Ontario website, hundreds and hundreds of them covering the whole province, much more than we need for this search. In this case, we want to search just the Kingston newspapers, so we'll choose the box that says Search within these results. If we were searching a name that was likely to produce a large number of results, like John Smith, we could type it as a phrase with quotation marks around it. But in this example, the name is unique enough that we can just type the surname. We get 23 results. It won't take long to find the one that relates to Henry Tousley's death in September 1922, but before we go on, there are a couple of quirks about the site that are worth noting. For one thing, at first glance, the dates can seem confusing. The title of each newspaper includes the date when it first started publishing. In this case, the Daily British Whig began publishing in 1850, but we can just ignore that date because it's not relevant to our search results. For another thing, the results are not in chronological order, and you might be inclined to look for a sort button near the top of the page. You won't find one. But if you scroll down the page, you'll come to a box called Years. It shows all the years from which our Tousley search returned results. You can click a button to see the search results from that year. Since Henry Tousley's headstone shows that he died in 1922, we know which year to click. And here are the newspaper results from 1922 that include the name Tousley. The date of death on his headstone was September 17th, so this newspaper from September 21st might contain an obituary. Now here's a tip about the Our Ontario website. Resist the impulse to click on the title. I do this all the time, even though I know better. But if we click the title, we will end up back at the opening screen for the September 21st issue of the newspaper. And then we'll have to click and browse our way through the pages to find the one that has the name Tousley on it. So don't do that. Instead, click the little page number. The text is tiny compared to the title, but this is the link that will take us straight to our search term. It opens the correct page of the paper and it highlights the places on the page where our search term appears. This makes it easy to zoom in on the relevant text. The controls are here at the top left-hand side of the window. You can click to zoom in. Here's the obituary of Henry Tousley. Once you've found the item you're looking for, of course you'll want to save it for your records. Near the top of the screen there's an option to download a PDF version of the page, but it does mean the whole page. That results in a pretty big file, and it's usually much more than you need. To save space on your computer and focus on just the obituary, you'll probably want to take a screenshot instead. So our search for the obituary was successful. If we just needed that particular item, we could take our screenshot, note our source information, and call it a day. But in many cases, you'll want to explore the other search results in case they might also be useful for your research. In this case, when we did our search for the name Tousley, we got 23 results, and some of those news items might also relate to Henry Tousley or his family. To go back and look at the results list again, just click the back arrow in your browser. Now, how long will it take to open 23 pages and zoom in on the results to see if they're useful? Not as long as you might think, thanks to a handy feature on this site. You can preview the search results to see if they might be relevant. If you hover your cursor over the page number, a preview pane will pop up. It shows a bit of the sentence in which your search term was found. This way you can skip over the irrelevant results and zero in on the good ones without having to open every page. Now and then, the preview pane will miss the mark due to issues with the optical character recognition, or OCR. In that case, you'll have to open the page and zoom in on the highlighted text to see why it came up in your search results. Here we can see that the name Tousley does appear, but for some reason the preview pane picked up text from an adjacent column. But you can see that even with a few quirks, the preview pane can save a lot of time and effort. The optical character recognition that transforms the printed words into searchable text is never perfect. Let's face it, some of those early newspapers are a real challenge even for human eyes. but we're thrilled that the OCR does work well in the most recent batch of digitized newspapers. Thanks to the efforts of the Frontenac Heritage Foundation, this is opening up all kinds of new opportunities for research about the early years of the 20th century in Kingston and Frontenac County. Since the earlier newspapers were microfilmed and scanned from more fragile originals, with print that was harder to read, and many pages damaged, torn, or stained, the OCR on the early 19th century newspapers is much less reliable. Luckily, there are some tools and tricks that we can use to work around those problems. In the next video, I'll show you a great resource for searching the very earliest Kingston-area newspapers. It's a hand-built index to the newspapers from 1810 to 1849, and you can search it online. I'll tell you about that in part 3 of this 5-part video series. Meanwhile, please feel free to get in touch with questions or feedback. I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me through the contact form on the library's website at www.kfpl.ca. Thanks for watching and have fun exploring the newspapers online.